Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Around the Clock. For those who are new to the channel, my name is John and my personal goal is to own, experience, and modify as many unique cars as possible. Today we're going to be comparing the 996 Twin Turbo versus the 997 Carrera S. Now what brings up this topic is both cars are relatively similar in price points, so sometimes people would like to compare the two or try to understand how they compare so they can make a decision on which way to go. Now, I have owned both a 996 Twin Turbo and I have also owned a 997 Carrera S. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you a little bit of detail of each car that I owned and then just kind of share my opinion on how they compare. So the 996 Twin Turbo that I had was a 2003. It also came with the X50 power package. Now, for those who aren't familiar with the power package, it was a factory option from Porsche. Your standard 996 Twin Turbo is going to have KO4 turbos, and it produces around 415 horsepower from the factory, brake horsepower that is. The X50 power package gives you upgraded intercoolers, it gives you upgraded turbos, so you'll get K24 turbos from a GT2, as well as an upgraded ECU and a beefed up transmission that produces 450 horsepower. So you get a 35 horsepower difference right off the bat. My car had that, but the gentleman that I got it from had tracked the car, and he ended up later replacing it with the GT4 in Miami blue. Gorgeous car. But as I mentioned, he tracked the 996 Twin Turbo, so it had modifications that were based around the performance of the vehicle. This car had Bilstein PSS9 suspension, it had GT series sway bars, it had upgraded turbos. So in addition to the X50, I believe he had some sort of maybe hybrid turbo on there. It had upgraded intercoolers, Markski intercoolers. It had a GIAC tune, AWE exhaust, just a lot of performance stuff. And then once I acquired the car, I started to add my aesthetic touches to it, because for those who know me, you know that aesthetics are my top priority, and I love making a car aesthetically stand apart from others. So I did a color-matched aero front lip, I did the Jotov Composites wider side scoops on the side that feed directly to the intercoolers, I did a Strosek rear wing, X50 exhaust tips. I had the wheel faces of the BBS E88 wheels done in gold. They were silver. The car had gyro disc, two-piece rotors. It also had OEM GT3 Club Sport seats in Nomex, which is like a cloth material, at a factory T-Equipment roll bar. I mean, the car was just dialed in and it was extremely fast. To date, it is the fastest car that I've ever owned. Now, to go over to my 997, I had a 2006 Carrera S. So the Carrera S is, 3.8 liter, flat six, naturally aspirated, 350 horsepower from the factory. My particular car was a factory aero car, and for those who aren't familiar with, what that means, on a 997, factory aero car is going to have a GT3 style front bumper, and it's also going to have a GT3 deck lid. Now, the only difference between a OEM GT3 front and the aero front is it's not going to have the grille at the very top. But that car primarily had aesthetic modifications on it. It had LED daytime running lights, LED taillights, rear bumper at the lead, MC2 rear splitters, H&R lowering springs, 20-inch Rahana RXF2 wheels, and satin black. It's a very, very good-looking car. So anytime, somebody brings up, 996 Twin Turbo or Carrera S, my first question is, what's more important to you, performance or aesthetics? So from an aesthetic standpoint, right, on the 996-2, you're going to have the debatable headlights and the reason I say they're debatable is Porsches traditionally have round headlights. Now, with the 996 chassis, there is a .1 and a .2 iteration. So the .1 is where it has the runny egg headlights, and that ran from, I believe, 07 through 01. And the reason why people say it looks like a runny egg is the headlight is more of an oval shape, and at the very bottom there's like a reflector and a turn signal that's orange. So people say, the oval shape reminds them of an egg, and then the orange part at the bottom reminds them of the yolk. The 996.2 does not have those headlights. It is a different shape, as in it's not round, but it is different. Therefore, a lot of people, well, you either have people that like it or they don't, right? Also, with the 996, the interior, I will say that the interior feels pretty dated. Now, granted, I understand the car is an '03, so it's 21 years old, but Porsches have always been kind of subtle with the ways that they do things. I would just say that the 996 just feels a little too dated for my liking. Otherwise, everything about a 996 twin turbo is still a turbo car. You still get the all-wheel drive, you still get the power. It's still a turbo car, regardless of what you think about the headlights. Now, talking about the aesthetics of a 997, it goes back to the traditional round headlight. Also, when you step into the interior, it feels a lot more modern. Even though it is still very subtle, it feels more modern than the 996 does. So, from an aesthetic standpoint, I think that's how they differ. Those are the major kind of determining differences or determining factors, whatever. But from a performance perspective, the Carrera S has a flat six, 350 horsepower naturally aspirated motor. I will say that I personally love the sound of a naturally aspirated car versus turbo. With the Carrera S, you're going to get 350 horsepower out of a 3.8 liter. The base Carrera has a 3.6 that only has, I believe, 320 horsepower. So there's about a 20-30 horsepower difference between the two. Known issues, right? All cars have their known issues. Talking about an '06 Carrera S, which is a 997.1, the things that you want to look out for is IMS, RMS, and bore scoring. Now, I will say, if you do research on IMS on 997 cars, I mean, the cars that are affected are less than 1%. If it is of concern to you, you can, have it looked at just to ensure that, everything looks okay. Regarding bore scoring, I think that would probably be more of a prevalent issue. And if that is of concern to you, then I'd recommend you get a PPI, prior to purchasing a car, just to have it looked over and just so you can have that peace of mind. And if you don't want to deal with IMS at all, you can switch to a 996.2 where they switch over to direct injection, and it's not as big of an issue when you switch over that route. So, coming over to the turbo, just to go back to the 997 here. So, with the 997, I will say 350 horsepower doesn't seem like it's a lot. But another thing that people have to, take into consideration is the weight, right? And the weight distribution. So I will say that the way that car is set up is very well balanced. And while 350 horsepower may not be a lot, especially to today's standards, where you have cars from the factory coming out with, close to 1,000 horsepower, it is fun to drive. To me, at wide open throttle, not too often is a Carrera S really going to get away from you, unless you really try to do it. And even at that, I could see that being a little bit challenging. But I will say the Carrera S is not fast, but it has enough power to be fun. Now, moving over to the turbo, my specific model was, the X50 package, and in addition to that, it had other performance modifications. So, unfortunately, I haven't been able to drive a factory turbo car. My car was already modified, but, you have a 3.6 liter flat six twin turbo, and, you also have all-wheel drive. So, I will tell you with my specific car, the car would break traction even in a higher at a higher speed, depending on what gear you're in. If you go wide open throttle, it would break traction even with the 315 in the rear, sticky compound tire. The car would still break traction. It was very quick. So, in short, if performance is your driver and that is the most important thing to you, versus aesthetics, I mean, the 996 twin turbo to me is a great bargain for the money. Even though I will say, even though the car market has adjusted and car prices are starting to come down, with the 996 twin turbo, I think people are starting to realize that, even though the headlights are questionable or debatable, it's still a turbo. And I think that they are actually starting to hold value pretty well. So if performance is your driver, 996 twin turbo is a great buy to consider. If aesthetics is more important to you and you want to have something that feels a little more modern, I'd say the 997 Carrera S is a great buy for the money. So I hope that this video helps you in making your decision. Either way, it's a win because these are just absolutely amazing cars, and that is coming from someone that has owned a lot of different cars that I'm going to go over in the channel on other episodes. But Porsches are by far my favorite vehicle brand, and I just absolutely love them. I mean, they're just engineered so well, and they're just amazing all-around cars. So hopefully this helps you in your decision. If you enjoyed the content, consider liking and subscribing, but otherwise I'll catch you in the next video.